come listen to the best music in Gunroom Radio. All of the artists that are performing are within the military family. Their songs are authentic, and the music and the camaraderie is amazing. So I want you to come and listen. Have a great time. Check us out at gunroomradio.airtime.pro or on Facebook at Gunroom Radio. Hey, welcome everybody. This is Don with Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. Man, let me tell you, it has been a crazy week. So, this show is now sponsored. We are sponsored by Operation Encore. Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit helping veterans take their dreams to a next step as transitioning from military life to the music life. They are there every step with them, helping them, guide them, and getting them to where they want. If you'd like to learn more about it, you can go to operationencore.org and find out everything you want to know. Hey, so today I have got a awesome veteran, Marine veteran, author, and is still currently serving to help the veteran community with the VA claims and the stuff that we love doing when we transition. So, without further ado, let me bring on Chris Whitmore. What's going on, Chris?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, I appreciate it, man. So, give everybody a kind of a quick rundown of your story. How did you become wanting to go in the Marines? And a little bit of your background.
Sure. Grew up in a complete military family. Like every male in my family served in either the Army or the Navy. So it was kind of like I don't want to say it was a force fed, but it was kind of like, yeah, I'm joining the military. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
The biggest influence was my grandfather, who was actually a Silver Star winner he was at Pearl Harbor when the bombings took place and all that stuff, and he won the Silver Star and
Wow.
all that stuff. So he would always kind of tell me, this is kind of what the military was like, and this is my perspective. But if you want to join the Navy, I can take you down there and we can talk to the recruiters. I'm like, no, Grandpa, I got it. Went with a good friend of mine from high school. We went down, both graduated already. We're like, hey, we're ready to go. Let's sign the papers and let's go. Recruiter was like ecstatic. He was like, okay, easy enough. Put us in, ended up going to Hawaii for my first 4 years, which of course that's a rough tour over there, Hawaii, getting paid to hang out on the beach.
Yeah.
And back then nothing was going on. In 99, got out, moved down to Houston with my now wife of 23 years, just crossed the 23-year anniversary mark, which is insane to even say. While I was out, was a state trooper for a little while, left there once the Iraq war kicked off, came back in 04, and then went to about 2015 when I was finally medically retired, and they said, thanks for playing, out you go. And that was the ride.
Man. So how many deployments did you actually do?
Three actual combat deployments, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan.
Okay. So what is your thoughts, right? We have this conversation quite a bit on the show. What is your thoughts being somebody that came in prior to 9/11, before and after? How much did it change in the Marine Corps before 9/11 compared to afterwards?
Wow. Night and day,
Yeah.
honestly. It was, in the 90s, it was all about, the spit and polish. You may deploy or go out to the field and train for a
Yep.
week, but it was like, it was all garrison. I mean, if you
Yep.
weren't, the pretty like jarhead haircuts and uh, uh, like starched uniform that could stand up in the corner by themselves, you're going to be miserable. Um, and then coming back in '04, all that stuff became like wash and wear.
Yeah.
The mindset was you're back, you have a year to train the new guys, or whoever was going to be going with you to the next deployment. And it was no time. I mean, there was still the garrison, but it was so polar opposite, because the priority has shifted and it's now trained for war, not trained to like spit shine boots. I mean, it was just such a drastic shift. It took a while to kind of get used to the operational tempo, because I was so used to the early stuff. I was like, oh, if this is going to be like that, this is going to be great. Hit the ground, I'm like, oh, this is nothing like that. And it was, and it stayed that way until, God, I don't know, probably 2013, 2014, toward the medical retirement side, when I was
Yeah.
away from the normalcy of operational squadron or an infantry battalion, and it was crazy though, but
Yeah.
big shift.
Yeah. I came in '94, and it the same way in the Army, man. It was like a 9 to 5 job. You
Yeah,
got up, you went and did PT, you went home, you came back, you worked, you went home 4:30, 5 o'clock, and that was the day. You
yep,
know, a lot of details, a lot of dog and pony show, and you
yes,
know, and if you were like me and you didn't enjoy the garrison life, man, it sucked because it was about babysitting
yep,
and everything else. And then 9/11 came, and all that training that, as we used to call NBC training, it stood for nobody cares. And real quick, people started caring.
yeah, like instantly.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it almost like the heat in the summer and the winter, how it can just change in one day. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just like a whole drastic shift that it was. Yeah, it was crazy, and it's. I think it's gotten better because I work around a few people who got out recently, and
Mhm.
their mindset and the way they verbalized how the Marine Corps was a lot different than when I left in 2015. And then there's a whole lot of shifting right now with the whole, all the nonsense, and the drill instructors can't like swarm anymore. They
Oh,
can't
yeah. Yeah.
one arms, like all that politically correct stuff. I'm just like, oh, thank God. Like I would be in the brig. There's no question about it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, man. I was when I was retiring, I was like people were asking me, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I guess I'm gonna start a daycare. It seems to be what I'm qualified to do," you know, because I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the Army of all places, I was up for advanced training and at the same location as one of our AIT areas, and the AIT students march themselves to school. There's no drill sergeant there, there's nobody, and, during part of that time, they have to tactically move to school, so you'll see them carrying their M4s and dodging cars, and I mean, I'm like, "What in the hell is going on, man?" You go in the chow hall and here they are on their phones, and it's like, "Man, time has changed."
Yeah, yeah, drastically, and
Yeah, man.
it's amazing. And then I just, yeah, I really just can't believe, looking back over the course of that, I don't know, 16 and change years, the different shifts and the different deployments, the mindsets of the different people. But it's pretty awesome. Back in our early run, it was 100%. Okay, I'm going to join, and I want to do all the cool stuff and jump on Zodiacs and splash up on the beach and
Yeah.
do all this recon ranger crap. And then all of a sudden, it's like oh wait, that's not what it is, and everyone's like got a bad taste into getting out. Oh, 04, everyone coming in. I mean, there was no illusion. If you were joining after 9/11 and you're like,
Yep.
oh well, I may deploy, I may not.
Yep.
Run the other way from the recruiting office because there's no question about it. You're you're going to deploy. Like it's
And
just
that's
the
gonna be
way it
your
is.
first duty station.
Yeah, you're going to get to the fleet and they may already be deployed, and we're going to send you over there to augment
Yep.
and join up with them and welcome to Iraq. You know, it's
Yep.
like, and it's yeah, geez. And looking back, and I can't believe that was uh, almost 20 years ago
I
when I
know.
came. Like God, which I can't even fathom. 20 years ago, I'm like, wow, I was just young and stupid back then. Now I'm like old and broke.
Yeah.
But it's it's just hard to believe time flies like that, and you blink and it's like, wow, where did the time go, and what am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's uh,
Sometimes when I talk about the stories, man, I I mix up maybe the year or something that something happened, or I would mix up whether it was Iraq versus Afghanistan, and it used to bother me because I was like, "What is wrong with me? Why can't I remember where I was at?" But just like you said, man, it was a 20-year war. I mean, I spent
yeah,
68 months going in and out of that theater, back and forth. Yeah, and
God,
it's no wonder I mixed shit up because I was constantly going to one or the other
68
nonstop,
months, Jesus,
you know? So, and I think that's the same for a lot of people because the war did drag out for so long, you know,
yeah,
that you do lose track of the years because it doesn't slow down when you return. When you're in the
no.
stateside, that train's full blower still, "Whoop, whoop, let's
Yeah.
go train," and, man, it's crazy because you come back, you get maybe 90 days with your family, and
Yeah,
then the training for the next mission starts,
yep,
and you're like, "Holy shit," you know?
no break.
And I think, to be honest, and I'm not dissing any military. All branches. I don't care if your rank, your MOS. You signed the line. You knew you were going to deploy. You're going to play a role in this war somehow, some way. And
Absolutely.
but I do feel like that train that we're talking about affected the Marines and the Army a lot more than some of these other um, branches. I
Oh
did
yeah.
deploy with several Air Force people, and, they would tell me stories that just made me jealous, man. I'd be like, "Where's the rest of your unit?" And they're like, "Oh, no, this is a voluntary thing. If you volunteer to deploy in the Air Force, when you come back, you get to pick your duty stations." So there was some place I wanted to take my family to, so I came over here, and in return, they're gonna send me to whatever base I wanna go to, and I'm like, "Yeah, in the
Wow.
Army, the next base you're going to is going to Afghanistan, buddy."
hope your hope your stuff is packed because off you go.
Yep. You
Uh,
don't get that opportunity to say, "Well, let me go to some chill, nice environment." People were like, "I'm gonna go to Hawaii." Well, guess what, bitch? Hawaii's deploying too.
yep, and they yeah sure as hell like every and that was the crazy thing is in Hawaii. I was with Third Battalion, Third Marines, stationed on the northeast corner, and it was chillville. Go to the beach every Friday, all that stuff. But they actually relieved the unit I was with in Fallujah in '07. So
Mhm.
yeah, Hawaii, their assets are coming too. Like they're not
Yep.
protected by the island. They just
Nope.
had a longer flight. So it was
Towards the end of my military career, I got like a dream assignment. I got stationed in Qatar, right? Like paradise, you know. Guess what? First time Qatar ever deployed was when I was there. So I went to Kandahar from Qatar. I'm like, I just can't fucking win.
no, and it's and the one thing that I think you would agree with too is Iraq, Afghanistan, summertime, hot as hell,
Yeah.
like blistering hot. Wintertime, cold, rainy, nasty. So it didn't matter what country you were in, but
Yep.
you can damn sure set your watch by, oh, it's June, we're gonna fry for a while,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, if
And
you were in northern Afghanistan, dude, there would be snow up there until like April.
God, I
Like
wish I could.
Bagram and places like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
It- oh God,
You know,
Afghanistan.
I
Yeah.
remember I remember our aircraft taking SEALs up. They called it training, but to them it was fun, man. And my hat's off to Navy SEALs, man, because they're built different. I don't care what anybody says,
Oh
but
yeah, they're mind.
we were literally taking them there outside Bagram up to the top of the mountains, and they would jump off the back of our helicopters with skis and then ski down the slopes. And I'm like, man, you guys are out of your damn mind.
Yeah, like of all places, like it's not like you're in Utah or like Lake Tahoe or something. You're like skiing through a combat zone. Like what the fuck?
Exactly, man. I mean, that is insane. But yeah, you know, and they can call that mission work or whatever you want, but I think they were having fun, man. I think that was just them saying, "Hey, we're gonna go party for a while."
Their way of like decompressing and
Yeah,
you just like why not? Let's go skiing down in Afghanistan. Like why not?
yeah,
Uh,
man.
they are definitely truly like you said built very differently.
They are, man.
Um, and then another group that is um, the Air Force. I mean, they live a pretty coach life. No more coach than the pararescue guys. Like
Hmm.
they, even on deployment, I was like, these mother. They have like a designated nutritionist, cook, gym person, like deployed with them so they can make sure that they stay like yoked and in top physical shape and all this other stuff. And but those guys, when it came time to do like put in work, I've never seen a helicopter do what they would do. The dudes would pop smoke. They would come in. Dust off would circle. Once or twice to make sure everything's good. Pararescue, they just and just elevator drop right into the thing and put themselves between the wounded and where the enemy is possibly at, and
Yeah,
just like elevator drop. I'm like, God, like, and we had plenty of escort missions with those guys because they would come like flying in, and we were just. Were you with a helicopter squadron while you were in Afghanistan?
I was with the 160th SOAR. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Uh, in 2010, we ended up doing God 9,700 like flight hours in 7 months or something stupid like that. And at first I was like 9,700 hours, who cares, whatever. But like 2 months or a month and a half into the deployment, like our logbook that the pilots kept and all that too, went from black, in the States, little 1 hour missions, practice
Hmm.
landing. Yeah, cool. Now go tell your war stories. Uh, Everyone was in the red. Like within a month of the deployment, we were all flying in the red. Pilots up in the cockpit, like wiping the Tabasco sauce on their eyelids,
Yeah.
trying to stay awake. We're all in the back, like ugh. And I'm like, looking back at it, I'm like, that's probably dangerous, to fly when you're that tired. You
Oh yeah.
know,
And I seen that too on the Army side as well. I mean, they were giving the pilots, speed. I don't know what the pharmaceutical name they were calling it, but that's what it was. It was
yeah,
speed, to run extended missions.
yeah, those
And I
caffeine
seen a
pills and
Yep. I seen a lot of pilots, man, come back, grab a couple hours of sleep, and next thing you know, they're being woke up talking about, "Hey, y'all are the only crew here. I know you haven't had your crew rest yet, but it's time to go."
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just insane, you
It,
know.
it was. I couldn't believe it, um, and I'm sure you and a lot of people feel the same. Like I don't know how I'm even here, honestly. Like some of the stuff, I'm like, yeah, like you land and you got big old holes in the tail of the helicopter from a disc around that just like ripped through
Yep.
it. You're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yep.
um, and I just look back at it. I'm like, guardian angel, whatever, however you want to call it. But I'm just like, man, we pushed the limits, back then, and to the point where I think it was, I mean, it had to be done, but I think the limit that we were playing with was on that edge of, okay, this is stupid. Like for pilots to be like, popping caffeine pills and
Yep.
wiping Tabasco sauce in their eyes to keep awake to fly. Like
Yeah.
that's just insane.
Yep. Yeah. And again, like I said, man, everybody got affected because the same things was happening on the ground with some of these convoys. You know, they were constantly going in and out, and people just they didn't get the rest that they needed, and
No.
it showed, and it affected missions. I don't care what anybody says. That was fatigue was definitely, especially towards the end, because we as a unit, we even had um due to, I guess, living conditions. I really don't know what caused it, but um towards the end of Iraq, where we were downsizing and giving bases back over to the units and everything. We had a small part of Fallujah. I mean, it was literally about the part that the Americans occupied was about the size of a football field. And we had a company worth of element people living there, and they were doing. There was nothing there. There was no PX, no chow hall, no nothing. And
Yeah.
but that was part of what it was. It was tearing it down and pulling back. Well, we had I don't know. I want to say they were doing 4-month uh, rotations, and we had a uh, NCO tell a soldier, "Hey, you need to clean up your area," because his roommates were bitching because there was MRE wrappers and shit laying all around, and so he kind of punished that kid. I guess he made him pull everything out of his tent, clean it all up, and then put everything back in it in the hooch. And I guess the soldier and him got into an argument. Not the NCO, the roommates, and the NCO came back in, and the soldier shot him, killed him.
Oh,
You know, and yeah, I mean, obviously he went to jail and everything else, but I think as that war went on, man, it played with people's minds. You know, the living conditions and everything else. So yeah,
100% agree. And the constant shit. I think my biggest problem during all the deployments was the constant shift. Like I would rather either know that it's going to be like hell all the time
yeah,
or know that it's going to be like okay, this is like playing like cop on a beat kind of thing. And it was just not. And then of course you bring in the civilian casualties and the little kids and the
hmm,
just the constant, like there was just no let up. And in those earlier deployments like you were talking about, it was just non-stop. And if it wasn't one thing, it was another. And then you hear about this, and
yeah,
then you get back, and it's a wonderment why people come back the way they are,
yeah,
because they get in that cycle, and then all of a sudden they're out of the military, and they're like, I don't have to deploy, I don't have to be on this tempo anymore, and they don't know what to do with themselves. So the train wreck starts, and for some they're able to get off, but for others, as we've seen, um, the train wreck, I mean, it's just the train's heading for one station, and it's there's 22 a day
yep,
statistic on it. And what blows my mind is this isn't obviously the first war America has been involved in. I mean, World War II, Vietnam,
right,
like A through Z. But ironically, every service member who comes back is dealing with, they call it something different, but it's the same thing
yep,
as, the homecomings were different, of course, the Vietnam protests and all that.
yep,
But everyone's coming back with the same type of issues. The military either doesn't want to see it, or they have to see it. I mean, they can't possibly be blind. But the operational tempo, so they just, oh, here's some meds, here's meds. Oh, you're drinking, you're the problem, you're out.
yep,
And they make examples of these guys, but it's the same stuff over and over with all these wars. And yet the military and people like myself, I was the biggest hypocrite of them all. Um, but I was like, oh, I'm invincible. That didn't bother me, blah blah, all that stuff. And just kept going and going and going. And it's like, God Almighty, no wonder like I was the way I was. But
Yeah.
I'm just shocked the military and the government haven't figured out, okay, because hopefully there's not another 20-year war because that was just insane. But I'm sure, I mean, I hope not, but I'm sure there'll be something else like, when we're like the old people, well,
Mhm.
older than we are now, but, the old people and, hopefully there's not another conflict. But if it is, get ready, America, because here we go again, unless something changes. And it's, yeah, I don't know. It's just insane.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I know one thing, and I don't give a shit what it is, but you cannot change my mind on this. The military, our army, anyways, when we would come back from deployment, as soon as you got back, if you got in at night, it was the very next morning. But if it was um, during the day, it was that day. You had to in process when you returned, and there was multiple stations that you had to go to, and it was like a round robin type thing. So you had to get your little piece of paper checked off, and you went to the doctor. You did this, you did that, or whatever, right? And everybody knew if you went to the psych and if you answered the question wrong,
Mhm.
it was going to be hours after everybody before you got to see your family,
Oh yeah.
because all you got to see was the little assistant that gave you the questionnaire. And
Ugh.
if you had a problem, then you had to wait to see the actual psychiatrist, and that didn't happen until it was all over. So you would have to sit there and wait to talk to him about your problems, and then depending on what you said, you may not even got to go home to your family. They may have put you in the barracks,
Yep.
you know? And so everybody said the same thing. Nope, not a problem.
Nope.
Good
I'm
to go.
good. Yep.
Yep. And
Well,
and that's why, we are in the situation that we're in, because that carried over from so many deployments. It's still the situation now.
yep.
You ask a guy if he's okay, and the answer is yes.
Immediately, like,
Yeah,
yep, I'm
yeah,
golden.
yep. So,
What were they called? Post deploy those PHA post deployment freaking health assessments.
yep, yep,
My wife laughs every time she looks at the ones I did because it was the exact same way. Like, there's no effing way I'm gonna be that guy who checks that box wrong.
yeah,
And she said, like, do you coming back from a trip to Disneyland or what? Like, you're just everything's perfect and
yep,
you're good. I was like, because I wanted to stay with these guys. I wanted to go see you. I didn't want to, like you're saying, sit there for hours and wait for. And then of course you see that guy and he's like, everyone's like, hell no, like this guy's got to wait.
yep,
Yep, I'm good. And it was so ridiculous. Those, I mean, they used to pass those out on the flight back from
yeah,
Kuwait. They would pass them out, and we're like, whatever. And then right after that, they would go through and pass out the ambient, so everyone would like knock back out. And I mean, it was just, it's
yep.
so funny to look back at it. It's just like, oh my god, like what the hell were we thinking? But it was a different mindset, though. I just,
Absolutely, man. I mean, at the end of the day, now, especially now that I've gotten out and can look back through different lenses, while you're in, it makes sense. I don't want to do anything to make myself different from the guy to my left and my guy to my right. As
yep.
long as I look like them, I'm good to go. You know, and just like you said, when you see that guy sitting there waiting to talk to the shrink, you're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Nope, he's broken.
Nope. Yep. And now
Yep,
you're blacklisted and you're
yeah,
fucked. Like you're done.
yep. So,
And it's, whew.
did the book come after the military, or were you starting that process during the military?
Yeah, the book actually came after the military. I had just started working for the Veterans Treatment Court. Helping vets that get arrested for DWIs and putting them in treatment, and then if they successfully do the year, their case is dismissed and they can get it expunged. It's like a fresh start. And so I was loving that, but 3 weeks in, COVID lockdown. I'm like, oh, so now I'm gonna OJT by myself. I'm gonna learn this job from the kitchen table and my personal cell phone. And I'm like, well, fuck. here we go. Um, but during that time, I started thinking about all these stories and talking with different guys and seeing what they were up to and all that. And a lot of the details were starting to like slide away, and that really, and I think you mentioned it before too. That really bothered me that I couldn't remember all the details. I mean, I
Mhm.
used to be able to, oh, it was 3 a.m. There was a Coke can rolling down the road. It was this, dogs were
Yep.
barking. And so before all of that left me, my wife's like, hey, why don't you just journal, like type it up as like a story, tell your story. And, that way, if your brain goes kaput on you, at least you have like a record of it or something like that. I was like,
Mhm.
good idea. I mean, it's, so I initially just started typing it up as like, write some notes. And if someone wants to look at it later, at least it'll be there.
Mhm.
And once I was done, my wife's like, why don't you send it to a publisher? I'm like, I was like, a publisher? Yeah, right. Like what? And she's like, no, seriously. I mean, what's it gonna hurt? What if they say no? They say no. Like that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, you know what, whatever. And within like 2 weeks, the publication company uh, called me. It was like, hey, we read your book. We, we really want to work with you and get it published. And I was like, well, in this state of shock, I was like, well, what do you mean publish
Did
it?
you
Like,
did you call the right number?
yeah, like, are you sure you're looking for me? And they kind of walk the dog uh, through the whole process, and the editing and the constant rereading the story. God, I don't know. I've probably read the book before it was published like 20 times, just making sure
Yeah.
everything was the way I wanted it to be. And then all of a sudden, it's the launch day happens. November 2021. It hits, and I just, you get the box with the 10 author copies so you can pass out to family and friends. And I'm just like dumbfounded. I'm like, what is this? Like, how did this even happen? And and ever since now, it's been just a whirlwind. I'm just these people that have emailed me. I've talked to guys in Australia, Great Britain, East Coast, West Coast, overseas that I have no idea who they are. They just reach out via Facebook and they're like, hey, I got this book, or this book was recommended, blah, blah, and I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean? And it's, a bunch of great comments and, hey, this book helped me, and this, this did this, and this made me, seek help. My wife is a therapist out in an addiction place up in Canyon Lake area. And one of a bunch of her clients have ordered the book, and they're reading it, and they kind of have a meltdown after reading the book a little bit because
Yeah.
it's stirring up the stuff. And but then it's also forcing them to be like, God, you know what, I don't need to wait 15 years like I did. I can do it now, and it's okay to, my favorite line I always tell people is, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And if you were over there as many times as all of us and you're not affected, there's a,
And you're definitely not okay.
yeah, there's a prison right down there. Go check yourself in, because there's something wrong with you, and it's a lot of guys coming back are like, oh, well, I didn't do this, or I wasn't Delta Force, or I wasn't the Navy SEALs, and I'm just like, ugh. And I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, look, if I said, what about the firefighters and EMTs at the Oklahoma City bombing? Is it okay if they have issues? Of course yeah, of course. What
Yeah.
about Ground Zero, 9/11? Yeah, yeah, they dealt with all this. I was like, okay. And that was here in the States. You deployed over there at that type of level, but for 7 to 14 months. I said,
Yeah.
why is it not okay that, or why is it not okay for you to be rattled by that?
Yeah.
Quiet as a
No.
church mouse, because they have nothing to say.
Yeah.
And it's, and that's what the book was designed for, is I damn sure didn't want to write another war book. There's just, I mean, who wants to read another book on Iraq or Afghanistan or see another movie? Like,
Yeah.
hell no, you know. But I wanted to really paint that picture of, yes, this is what happens on the deployment, but this is the bigger picture of what happens when you come home, your family, they're drinking, isolating. You know, kids don't understand. So, you know, like that whole thing. And then you hit the ground running. You're like, woohoo, 2 weeks of post deployment leave, bam, back to, all right, we're training, we're deploying next year at this time. I mean,
Yep.
there's just no stop. And
Yep.
I really wanted to reiterate that and kind of take people through the good, the bad, the stupid, and then, you know, climbing out of that dark hole. And you know, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And it's been amazing though to have that book out and really hear the people's perspective and what they think of the book.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a big thing about that, man, is there's weird responses when you get from soldiers and people that have never deployed. I get this a lot, especially now that I work around 99% civilians that never been in the military, you know. And when they ask the question, they were like, "Hey, would you ever go back?" And I tell them in a heartbeat,
yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't think twice. And then they say, "Well, what about? I mean, you went to a place that gave you PTSD. It gave you this. It caused these problems." Yes, I would go back in a heartbeat
Yeah.
because as much as much as it's screwed up, it makes more sense when you were over there. Life is simpler.
Oh yes.
The camaraderie, you don't have the backstabbing and the negativity that happens. You know,
Mhm.
everybody is pretty much can walk up and talk to anybody and have a good time and when you're at your lowest, they're there to support you and when you're at your best, they're there to give you shit and talk shit. You know, and the moment you come back from the states or come back to the states, that all changes. The people that you were with day in, day out, best friends with, now you don't see them, you don't hang out anymore on the weekends. That camaraderie is gone. Yes, you know, you got your family, but as much as messed up as it sounds, there's a different type of love than there is for your family. I mean, you're talking about people that you've seen them at their worst,
Yeah.
and that bond is there. And I think a lot of soldiers when they come back, especially when they transition out of the military, they're still looking for that,
Yep.
and it's just not there no more. You know, and to come up with a way to put that in a book is extremely difficult. You know, and it's hard to explain why every soldier you ask will tell you they would go back in a heartbeat, but they all will also tell you the stories that just make you cringe on what was going on over there.
Yeah.
And normal people that are not affected just they have a hard time understanding that. You know, they hear us complaining about the train that, like you just said, come back and you're a couple months with your family, and then it's train you're going back on this date. You know, and everybody's like, "Man, this is such bullshit. We don't ever get a break." Blah blah blah. Would you go back in a heartbeat?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, what the hell is wrong with y'all? You know, because unless you're there and experiencing it, there is no understanding. And that that train, man, I think that's the worst part of it because I hated the train up,
Oh yeah.
but after the goodbyes were said, and you hugged your family, and you turned your back and you walked, it's like a switch just goes off, man,
Yep.
and nothing matters anymore. You become solely focused on what's in front of you, and you don't worry anymore about what's behind you. And it's like I said, it's tough to explain, but you know, when you deploying like that, I think that's one of the methods that you have to have. That is the attitude that you have to get through it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know?
You worrying about what's behind you. Like yeah. Like you just, like you said, you can't. I mean, if you're worrying about that, there's like way more extreme things in front of you
Yep.
that you better worry about because if you don't worry about it, it's going to come find you. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's just crazy how how full circle it is, and anyone who was in during that era, or was associated with somebody who was in the military during that era,
Mhm.
is like the the stories, like you said, it doesn't matter, Navy, Army, Marines, whatever. The deployments were the deployments. A lot of similarities. I mean,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I remember, the freaking Moss speakers going off 7 times a day and wanting to like shoot a rocket into it just to get it to stop.
Yep.
Um, coming back, the drinking, I mean, it's almost like you could just take one person out of the equation, put someone else in the equation. It's like, oh yeah, weird. It's the same stories, but but then again, it's hard to believe looking back that was 20, like damn near 20 years ago. Also,
Yeah.
you kind of look back and you're like, I mean, people who are graduating 18, like in their junior year of college were just being born, like during that first deployment. I'm like, God, I'm getting old, like
Yeah.
it's or even 9/11. I mean, there's people graduating college that weren't alive during that time, and they
Yep.
see it on TV, like we do for the Pearl Harbor stuff. They see it on TV. They're like, oh man, but unless you live through that time period, you can't really appreciate the gravity and the whole landscape switch that took place. As those towers came down, I mean, the whole world changed like that. And for the last 20 years, it's been, pretty much a direct result, depending on what side you, but I mean, that was the thing that ticked it all off. And then it just became, I mean, 20 years, God, like it I just can't even fathom um, being in a conflict for 20 years. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
hard to believe um,
Well,
how.
and you think about this, man. I don't know how you felt, but my last deployments, man, I was deploying with kids the same age as my kids, you know? And to see them get hurt, man, you're like, shit, that could have been my son,
Yeah,
that could have been my daughter. And again, it puts all that shit into a different perspective too. And the only thing that's changed at that point is the age that you are and the lenses that you're now looking through compared to what you did when you were 23, 24,
yeah, yeah.
So
No, it was.
it is crazy. I mean, I still have a hard time believing it. I had a artist on the show not too long ago. He came in after 9/11, like right after 9/11, and he's probably almost completely retired now. He was on terminal leave when he came on the show.
Oh, nice.
So, and he spent 20 years. He went basic training, AIT to special forces,
Oof,
and he went through assessment, got selected out of AIT, you know,
Jesus.
and spent 20 years as a Green Beret. I mean,
Oof.
my hat's off to him, man. I couldn't have
Yeah.
done it.
No.
And
No. No.
then you start thinking about this. You're like, man, this kid spent his whole career fighting a war, from private to retirement. 20 years fighting a war, and there's no other war that could have ever happened in.
No.
Y-
And
and it's just crazy to think about.
Jesus.
We had people coming in and then they make it a career, and they spent their whole career fighting in two countries.
That is insane. And I mean, and that generation of the 20 years will never know um, the job
Yeah.
mindset of the military back in the 90s, um,
No.
or even now. When I retired, the population of deployed combat seasoned people was, I don't know, 80 to 90% ish.
Yeah.
Now, in today's day and age, I bet you the population is probably 10%
Probably.
that have deployed,
Yeah.
since all this has been shut down. And I'm like, I mean, some people spent their entire careers deploying. These guys will never know that thing, but they'll also never know the other side of when things were like just even keel and it was a Monday through Friday job with the
Yeah.
long weekends. Thank God for the holidays, and
Yep.
you just went out and did stupid. But now it's it'll be interesting to see what the transition is going to be and how it's going to shift with all the other stuff going on too. It's it's just insane. I mean,
Yeah. So how did you let's talk a little bit about the job that you had as far as helping soldiers with DUI cases. How did that come about?
yeah, I was doing just I was kind of in like that oh, this job is cool, no, this job, and I was job hopping a lot after I retired. And I ended up seeing this case manager role for a veterans court, and I was like, oh, what the hell is a veterans court? I had, and little do I know, they're everywhere, like East Coast, West Coast, they're everywhere, and I had no idea what it was. And so I go down there and drop my resume off, talk to the director of the program. The judge is an old like JAG colonel, did like 38 years in the army or something like that, and
Hmm.
everyone was associated with the military. They were, I was kind of learning the job before even interviewing and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And essentially, how it would work is um, anyone who was arrested that put the check mark, veteran status, yes or no, they would send us a list every week and say, here's all the people who got arrested for DWIs, assaults, A through Z, whatever the
Hmm.
charge was. And my job would be to basically screen um, that list and be like, okay, misdemeanors, because there's a felony side and then there's the misdemeanor side, and I worked on the misdemeanor side. As long as it wasn't like something with like children, something with like elderly,
Hmm.
um, or anything like if they like attempted murder or anything like that. Most 90% of the time, that arrest report was like simple possession. Guys coming back trying to cope with stuff.
Yep.
Taking pills or smoking weed, whatever. And 97% probably was all DWIs, first seconds, like on the bubble of that third to catch
Yeah.
that felony. And I would call them and kind of tell them about the program, like, hey, this program is designed for you, to get them out of the normal rat race of the criminal justice system. This
Right.
is strictly just like for veterans. We the program was a year long. They would have to have a breathalyzer in their car, not the one you got below zeros to start it, but they would have to blow in a breathalyzer 4 times a day. They were required to enroll and receive treatment through the VA or an outside provider. They would have a probation officer. They would check in with us twice a month. I mean, it was it was like probation, but regimented.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, if they successfully complete the year, which most of them did, but you still have those hard heads like myself, who knew the answers and all that stuff, and they screw it up and you know they don't make the program, but the case is automatically dismissed, and then they can apply to have it expunged off their record, which that always gets approved as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like wiping the slate clean, like the arrest never happened.
Yeah.
Um, but some, we tell them like, hey, you're arrested for DWI. You are not, while you're in this program, there's no drinking for a year. No, that's my constitutional right, blah, 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 blah. And I'm
What
like,
what amendment is that?
yeah, they need to write that in because I was exercising that amendment big time after each deployment.
Yep.
But they couldn't see past that the 1 year. I'm like, guys, like it's 1 year. Deployments are longer than 1 year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you can do it blindfolded. Just don't drink. Like, and uh, I would try and tell people like, look, if you have this on your record, whether you're drinking or not, If a cop pulls you over at 3 in the morning, runs your report and says DWI, you're fucked. Like
Yep.
that stop is going to be that much longer. Same with possession, same with all
Yep.
that, because now they've got that probable cause to sit you there and be like, oh, you drinking? Like, let's search the vehicle. And
Yep.
you don't need that. And if you can just maintain for a year, you can create that gap where that's not going to happen, to you. But some still, they try and game the system. They think they've got it all figured out, and sadly, you know, a lot of them make it, which is great, but a lot of them, didn't as well, and they wouldn't accept the help. And you can lead them the horse to water, but if they don't
Yep.
want the help and all that stuff. But I absolutely loved that job, and got to do it 90% of the time I was at the job. I
Mm-hmm.
was at my kitchen table because it was all during COVID. It
Yeah.
was 2.5 years. The commute was about 50 feet from my bedroom door to the kitchen table, which was traffic was horrible.
Yeah.
And and I was able to do the book. I was able to work out and drop like 25 pounds, working out every day. I mean, what's the excuse then? Have the treadmill and the weights and stuff right there,
Yeah.
in the man cave. I'm like, God, I don't have an excuse now. Like, oh, I don't have time. Like, got to work. I'm like, damn, I've got all this time, and
Yeah.
I just literally have to walk. So, got myself into that, and then, yeah, COVID ended back in the courthouse, and in January, I ended up taking the new role that I'm doing now, helping with the VA claims, which is a monster all in its own. Like
I wouldn't have the patience for it.
I'm service connected, but I had no idea, like the level of, not the patients, dealing with every variety, from World War II, Korea War vets,
Yeah.
to like, present day guys who are, did 4 years in the Air Force as a cook on Lackland, and now they want, all this stuff, and it's just like, and that's my hard part is talking to these people who did like 4 years. They, to no maybe no fault of their own, never deployed, but now they're coming in and say, oh, I've got this wrong, and breaking out this laundry list of stuff, and I'm like, okay, stop, like look around for a second, and they'll kind of scan it, and then they'll start like crossing stuff off their list, and I'm like, you don't have to cross shit off. I was like, but let's be real, like, you're all these things are not, due to whatever, and you're just not going to have all these broken bones and all this other stuff. Your back's not going to be like jacked up, knees, all this other stuff from, unless you were hurt, and then that's, you fell off the obstacle course, you broke your, whatever, then okay,
Right.
fine. But if it's just, you had a PG career, and now you want to stay on the government's dime, then no, I've got a huge problem with that. But it's been, since January to date, I've done 240 VA claims for people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, and I as frustrating it is, I couldn't think of a better job either. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't do it, brother. My hat's off to you, man, because I'm gonna tell you I lost my temper just asking the VA rep a question. And again, I get it. I wasn't necessarily in the right state of mind as I was getting out of the military, but my temper was not the best at that point. And I literally went up and asked him. All I was going to ask him was what paperwork I had to bring to my appointment the next day. And the guy looked at me and he goes, "You got an appointment?" I said, "Well, my appointment's not till tomorrow." I said, I just have a question." He said,
Yeah.
"Well, today's appointments only. We don't take walk-ins." And he just turned around and walked off.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't have anybody, and I was just literally trying to find out what I needed to bring. And
Yeah.
I remember yelling at him. I said, "You know what?" I said, "You can go fuck yourself. I don't need your fucking money." And I just turned around and walked off. And
Yeah.
I didn't file a claim for 3.5 years after the military,
Jesus. Yeah,
and
man.
it took some convincing some buddies of mine that knew me, and at that point, my life was starting to really go downhill.
The
I
tailspin for
got out
sure.
and started a trucking company, and I think the worst thing you can do as a soldier, man, is to put yourself in a semi truck and drive 650 miles a day and be out on the road alone for 6 weeks at a time
Yeah.
and have nothing but time to think, you know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, that wore on me. And finally, at some point, my wife was like, look, you need to get help,
Yeah.
And at that point, that's when I went and seen I didn't go to the VA at that point yet either. I went to a civilian therapist, and he got me level-headed enough to where, I could literally deal with some red tape bullshit without exploding. And
Yeah.
then at that point,
Good.
I started the claim process. But
And it's the claim process. I being knowing what the VA is like, looking back and be like, man, the VA, fuck, like it's just a big corporation. I mean, I hate to
it
call it a
is.
corporation, but it's a corporation. And being thank God I'm not a VA employee. I just work for the county, and we're empowered um, by the VA. We're licensed to do the claims for people,
Mhm.
and you have these people coming in, and from all walks of life, all different careers, all different things, and I'm just like, man, and they come in and they want to do the claim themselves, or they file a claim online, or the barracks lawyers said, "Oh, do it this way, and you'll
Yeah.
be good." And or these lawyer vultures out there that are charging vets like 30% of their claim, their first check, to do the claim for them. Like, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
30%. I was like, that. I was like, if you get back pay of 30 grand, you just gave that dude 10 grand to file 10 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
And they come in frustrated, pissed off at the world. And I had a lady today come in, and she was so apprehensive about doing this appointment that she was like fidgety, like, coming off a bender or something like that. And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm just really nervous. And, I don't know what to expect. And I was like, well, expect to, like, let's kick back, enjoy it. We're just going to talk. I'm going to do this paperwork. We're going to get you on your way. Uh, and she's like, I've got to pick my kids up in like 4 hours. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're probably going to make lunch because you're only going to be here like 45 minutes, like max. And we did her paperwork, and I'm like, okay, we're all done. I just need you to electronically sign here, here, and here. Bam, submit it to the VA. Here's your copies. Got any questions? And she started crying because she was so keyed up.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of pulled the rug out from under her, not in a bad way, but I'm like, yeah, we're good. We're done. And I mean, she started crying, just like, oh my God, I should have come and seen you guys a long time ago. But like you said, if you're not in the right frame of mind,
Mhm.
it's so frustrating because it's all this paperwork. And if you've gone through the process and you've been denied, now you don't care because you're like,
Yep.
screw it. All they're going to do is deny me. And then you come see me. Okay, this is why the VA denied you. And it's a word game.
It is.
It's all wording. I'll do the wording, bam, send it up within 30, 40 days. They're approved. I'm like, hey, by the way, you just went from 10% tinnitus, a guy like us, war vet, beat to shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, by the way, you just went from 10% tinnitus. We reworded the claim. You were able to see the doctors, and now hey, you're 100%. Congratulations. And this guy was like, is this a joke? Are you just kidding? And I was like, why would I call and joke about this, with you? I was like, no. I was like, you're good. And you hear the wife in the background start crying too. And it's just like, God, and that's the rewarding part, is seeing some we can't do anything about. It's like, my hearing sucks. I was like, all right, well, when was the last time you had a hearing test? Because I mean, how hard is it? Beep, beep, beep. And like, oh, like 13 years ago. I'm like, what do you want them to do?
Yeah.
You need to go get a hearing test out in town by your primary care doc. Bring us the thing. We'll submit it to the VA. And we're done. 30 minutes. But they don't want to do that small piece of it
Yeah.
to get the bigger picture. They want the now. I want my
Yep.
claim done right now. And it's like, well, we'll submit it if that's what you want.
But
But
it's just gonna get denied.
yeah, in about 2 weeks, you're going to get a letter saying, too bad.
Yep.
And I try and explain that to them. And a lot of the guys I work with, some were military, some never, they didn't deploy. In certain aspects, they were, like recruiters, HR, stuff like that, or they
Right.
deployed for a short thing. And so a lot of the guys that come through our intakes are two combat Marine guys that one male, one female Marines, and they're up front and they do the initial screenings. And every single time, it seems like military, our era, combat vets are all coming to me. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why? And like, because you understand them, you know how to talk to them. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So I just, as frustrating as I couldn't think of a more rewarding job.
Yeah, man. I get it. When I ended up doing it all myself, and it took me, I don't know, I'd say a total of about 2 years to go from 0 to up to 70 where I'm at now. You know, and it was just because, like you said, wording, and
Yep.
I would get denied for things, and I would get frustrated, and I'd set it down and say, I'm not doing this no more, and then I would calm down and go back at it again, and um, going back again, I wish I would have went to somebody to help me. I would have had a lot less frustration.
Yeah.
But once I finally got to 70%, I said, that's probably about fair. And so I don't pursue anymore, and I'm content. And um, but I do get it because you hear those stories of the kid that washed out in basic training and is trying to claim PTSD, you know,
Yeah.
and you're like, what the hell,
Yeah. Like,
But so yeah, I do get it on their side too. Their systems are in place because they do know there's a lot of people that are just trying to, you know, take
game
that
is
free
just,
ride.
oh, for sure. And,
You
and
know,
it's sad that it's that way, but there is. Um, and it's great. I'm glad that you at least have a rating, based on like the months on deployment. I'm kind of shocked that you're as low as you are, truthfully. But if you're content, I mean, that's what's
yeah.
important. But I would imagine that there's some
You,
things.
oh yeah, there. Like I got denied for my knees. They said it wasn't service related. I came in 19. I did 10 years in the special ops world. You know, with
Yeah,
rucksacks on my back. I'm surprised I'm still walking. And
yeah,
you know, but like I said, I don't bitch about it because I do get treatment through the VA for whatever's wrong with me, regardless. So
nice.
going back and trying to reopen the rating systems, that would just be about money. They're still taking care of me. I
Yeah,
could go tomorrow and talk about my knees, and they're going to start treatment to fix whatever's wrong with me. So, you know,
yep,
on that aspect of it, I'm like I said, I'm content, man. My
nice.
aches and pains, they take care of them, and I've had a lot of, I hear a lot of horror stories about the VA, but the shrink that I seen has got me in a place that I'm, for the first time in a long time, I'm
That's
I'm
awesome.
good, and um, so I don't have any complaints. I'm content, and I
That's
do still
awesome.
sympathize, and I do understand because when you hear people and they start talking about their horror stories, just ask them, well, where are you from? What town do you live in? And you're going to start hearing Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and these big ass cities. And it's
Yep.
like, well, that explains your issues with the VA. You
Yeah.
are a number
Yeah.
because,
One in a million.
yep, you know, and the VA I go to probably has 800 people in that town,
That's awesome.
so I mean, there's never no wait. You're in and out in 15 minutes, and you get to know the doctors. They know you by name, and it's
That's awesome.
the people that are there. They care about veterans, because it's such a small knit community, and so I think that makes a world of difference too of what
Oh, for
VA it
sure.
is that you're going to.
Yeah,
and
and what you're going there for
yep,
sure.
yep,
And
you
it's
know. So, well, I know we're getting a little bit past an hour, but let's talk about your new book, the new book that will be coming out here shortly.
yeah. I just somewhere in my uh, infantry like dumb box up top of my shoulders, like all these like this weird like an event like my wife's a therapist, and uh, one of her clients that she got really close to because she's just like that caring mother bear kind of thing, got left rehab, ended up ODing and passing away. And she told me about it and I'm just like, and I just start writing out this like poem that just comes to my mind. It's just like different things have woken me up at like 3 in the morning where you have to write them down to get it
Mm-hmm.
off your head. And so I put together this new book. It's about 43, 44 pages. It's going to be actually called Terror to Triumph 2, Darkness to Light. And it's a book on different poems, about like growing up, the life lessons learned on a baseball field or football field,
Mm-hmm.
stuff on deployments, stuff about like the memorial graves at Arlington, stuff like that. And uh, it's a book that it's just kind of just thought provoking poems that everyone can relate to in one way or the other. And I never thought never thought I'd write a book in the first place. Now two, a second book, like what? But it'll be hopefully on Amazon by the end of the week. And it'll definitely be through Kindle. The book's going to be like $12, I think. So hopefully, it gets some good traction, and people who have read the first one will read the second one, and
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. I mean, two books, like what? It's but yeah, so it's out, and I'll definitely be posting it on social media once it's fully launched, and it's just unbelievable that it's out. Like I'm still like dumbfounded by this one even,
Yeah, man.
and it's just hopefully someone will read that. And there's one about addiction and stuff like that based on this loss that was just suffered, and hopefully someone will read that and be like, damn, you know what, and get their mindset to get level. Because rejoining in '04 didn't get real help till uh, God 2017.
Yeah,
13 years of just living in that cloud. And then as you know as well, coming out of the cloud and being like, whoa, like this is what like peace of mind is.
yeah.
And it's been just a wild ride. And now getting the great opportunity to be on podcasts with you and others, and talking about the book and experiences and stuff like that. And just hope even just one word or 10 words that we've said tonight resonates with somebody, and they are like, you know what, if these two like broke down war horses can you know come out of it, what's my excuse,
Yeah, man.
and get the help that they need. And it's that's my hope.
It's about, taking responsibility and moving forward and not looking back. No different than deployments. You
Yeah,
know, focus on what's in front of you and fix what's behind you when you can, and don't get wrapped up in it. I mean,
yeah,
that's what it takes. But unfortunately, like I've always said, soldiers when they hit rock bottom and you tell them, well, now maybe you'll get some help. You just hit rock bottom. Usually their response is, hold my beer, I can go lower. You
yeah.
know, they just break
That's
out the shovel and keep digging.
yes, sadly. And it's, man, yeah, it's
Well, so they can find your book that's Triumph or Triumph to Terror, right?
Terror to Triumph.
Terror to Triumph.
Yeah,
They can find that at bookstores and Amazon. I know I was looking at it on Amazon, but I believe it's in Barnes and Nobles and a few other places, right?
yeah. Amazon, Barnes and Noble online. It's not in actual like a brick and mortar. but it's available if you Google the book title and then my name. It pops up with like 8 Google hit pages of hits
Mhm.
all over, and yeah, like Walmart, Target, Amazon, Kindle. If you don't like to read like me, I've done the audiobook as well, so you can go on Audible and get it. And yeah, just anywhere. And please, if you do pick it up, anyone who's listening, love the stars, but leave a review, like a written review, even if you're like, the book sucks, I didn't like it. Just because it helps, helps me in a way, kind of like, okay, what I did matters, that kind of
Yep.
thing. And it's um, by a miracle, I think it's 4.8 or 4.9 out of 5 stars or something like that on Amazon. I'm like, ugh, I mean, so someone likes it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah, man.
it's, but yeah, so please go out there, grab it, get better one day at a time, and just get out of your own way, and do what you need to do to be a success, and the sky's the limit.
Yes, sir, man. And Chris, I appreciate you coming on. Everybody that is Terror to Triumph, I will have the Amazon link when we load this up on Spotify. So if
Awesome.
you forget and you find it on Spotify, just hit the link and it'll take you straight to a location where you can buy it. And
Awesome.
I will also tag and put a link to your Facebook page. So go and give him a follow. He is on Facebook as an
Awesome.
Terror to Triumph. That's the page that you can find him on. So give him a follow, man, and hit him up.
Awesome.
And Chris, I appreciate what you're doing with the VA and the legal help that you've given veterans because you made a difference in somebody's life, and I
For
appreciate
sure.
that, and I know they do too.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. It's great hanging out with you. If I can do anything for you, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask. I'm all about, giving back, paying it forward, just like I know you are too. So,
Yes, sir.
yeah, let's reach as many as we can and see, and, let what's going to happen.
Yes, sir, man. I agree, brother. Well,
All right.
thanks for coming on the show, man, and take care. Be safe, man.
You too. You too. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.